why is it important, especially for our people, when there's an election, when they go to vote, they're not just voting in a leader, but they're voting their future. So election, most times we don't take election very seriously. But election has consequences. It's a decision that carries pros and cons. It's a decision that you have to live with for 4 years, I believe, because most countries,
democratic countries.
yeah, and that decision that you are making, that you have to live with for 4 years, it's not only going to affect the 4-year period of presidency, whoever becomes president, but also it has future implications.
Yeah.
Let's say, for instance, whatever policies the government puts in place will not only affect the present situation, but also the future. If the policies are bad for society, if the policies are not leading to the progress, advancement of the society, then not only do you have to live with it for 4 years, but also in the future. So, my brother, why at times we don't take election very seriously, but election has an impact that people are not aware of, that you have to live with. I call election as a social decision, political event, but that has a social implication. It's a decision that we don't take seriously, that affects the entire nation. So why are people, most times when there's election, we don't want to vote, and even when we vote carelessly.
Yeah.
We don't vote with wisdom. We don't vote thinking about our future. Sometimes we vote for the current need, our current state of need, but has long-term implication. So how can we encourage our people when they go to vote, they're not just going to vote carelessly, but they're going to vote wisely. Also thinking about the future of themselves and also their children.
I think the reason why elections are getting less and less important with the people is a lack of confidence that the vote actually matters. Lack of confidence that whoever they elect in office can actually deliver their needs, their the most important things in their life that is important to them, maybe money or like good families and consolidation of the economy. I don't think they're confident in the leaders that we put in. They're not confident in the politicians, most importantly, because the politicians don't show servant leadership. It's they're more to themselves. They're not held in esteem. They're not ethical. They're not thinking about the needs of others, but to fill their coffers with money. And I think that reflects on the lack of confidence that voters show in recent elections. They're less on participation. And we need to change that. We need to change that mindset in order to have an informed electorate and a robust democratic system or process.
The reason why there's less participation, involvement in the election is because lack of confidence in the populace regarding who to vote for, because they have been disappointed over and over again. And that is so typical, right? And my question that I want to throw at you is that how can we avoid that, or how can we instill confidence in the hearts of the populace? I mean, I think we need to see changes in the politicians. The politicians have to instill hope and assurance that if you elect me, whatever I have promised, at least I'll be able to execute or deliver some of them. people want to see tangible results of their votes.
Yes.
And when they don't see that, some of them will never vote again. Some of them will just vote casually because it's the norm. But they're not voting with intention. They know what? I have examined these candidates. I've looked at their resume. I've looked at their competences, their character. Because sometimes we vote a personality rather than the principles and leadership philosophy of that politician.
Exactly.
The principles of that politician. Like you mentioned, the servant attitude of that politician. Because we want politicians that will seek the interest of the people, will seek the well-being and the welfare of the people. Because I think it was Abraham Lincoln that said, government for the people, government by the people, and for the people. So if we are going to elect a new government in, we the people, we elect that government, and we are expecting the government to serve the people, the government to be for the people, because we elected the government by the people, for the people.
Something that sticks with me is we need politicians not to focus on re-election, not to focus on only winning re-election, but to go beyond that, to go beyond seeking just the votes or seeking popularity. We need someone who stands with principle, who is willing to go against the voters for their own well-being sometimes, like to have a stand, to have a philosophy of government that serves the populace instead of serving themselves. That's what we
vote in the personality rather than their policies, because most times the voters don't have a comprehensive idea of who they're voting for, and they don't even have their mandate.
Campaign manifesto.
Yeah.
Campaign
Pledge, right?
Yeah.
So we don't, you see, this is what I tell people, that if you are going to vote, look at the 4 P's of the politician. Look at his personal profile. Look at his principles. Look at his leadership philosophy. And look at his social policies. What do I mean by personal profile? Who is this person? Look at his track records of being a public servant. Investigate this person that you want to elect or re-elect to represent you. Investigate his social background, family background, spiritual background, financial background, professional background. Gather as much information about this candidate so that you are sure who you are electing in office. You also have to look at their principles, meaning their moral, social values.
Precisely.
Do they value family? Do they value education? Do they value entrepreneurship? You also have to look at their principles in a sense that, are they ethical? Are they transparent? Are they honest? Are they men or women of integrity? And also, you also look at their leadership philosophy. There is a difference between a leader and a politician.
Exactly.
Yes, a politician can be a leader. A leader does not necessarily have to be a politician. Politicians, sometimes they're just there as career professionals, which I call them career professionals. They are in politics as a career, but not as a leader. So you have to examine this candidate, their leadership philosophy. What do I mean by their leadership philosophy? How they're going to lead the nation. Is it from a servant leadership point of view? Is it from a team-based point of view? Inclusivism? Is it from leadership point of view, meaning that do they have a vision, plan, strategy in place for the well-being and the welfare of the people? So you have to look at how they're going to lead, the vision that they have for the country, the nation, and finally, you look at their social policies. What are the social developments they have in place? What social development they have in place, let's say, for the healthcare system? What social development they have in place for the educational system? What social development they have in place for infrastructure, for public services, for transportation, for electricity?
We need a leader with vision, a leader that sees ahead. There are struggles, obstacles right now, but they see the end result. They see victory over certain obstacles in government or in society. They look ahead and they plan accordingly. We need leaders of that yoke.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the election in Nigeria and the election here in Canada. Can you tell us the differences that you see or the similarities in the Nigerian election and the Canadian election?
Well, both the Nigerian and Canadian elections are democratic, but the Canadian is parliamentary system, meaning you vote in members of parliament, but in the Nigerian system, it's Congress. So you vote in your legislative, the House of Reps, for example. So that's a similar system, yeah.
Why do you think election has consequences?
It shapes the fabric of the nation, the moral fabric, and also it shapes the society, like what your values are. Whether you believe in family or you believe in a strong economy or strong military, or whether you believe that, climate change or social unity is important. Like, it shapes what you believe as a nation, what is important to you as a nation. And I think that's why elections have consequences. Yeah.
Our advice is that our people should be intentional. They should investigate these candidates, who need your votes.
Yeah. Leaders, yeah. And also, it also is important who you put in the legislative body when it comes to law, when it comes to shaping, the culture of the nation, for example. I know law is a very important aspect in that. So very important who you put in the legislation and who you put in to write your laws.
The legal system.
Yeah, legal system, exactly. Yeah.
I will either increase crimes or reduce the crime of a society.
Yeah.
And the leniency on the punishment of a criminal.
Prison terms, for example.
Prison term, yeah. And one of the most important things that people should consider to see or to vote for in their candidates:
integrity, ethical behavior, moral stand, philosophy of government, also compassion. I think that's something that hasn't been highlighted. They has to have heart for his people, for his constituents, and truth, seeker of truth. I think that's very important because it takes a strong candidate to be able to tell the people what they need to hear instead of what they want to hear for election or a re-election bid, for example. So those are very strong characteristics you have to have. Nationalism
and globalism, right? Because we see the difference between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Donald Trump, his philosophy was America first. Everything America first, right? That nationalistic concept of philosophy of leadership, right? There's nothing wrong about being nationalistic, we just have to balance being nationalistic and also being globalistic, right? Whereas Joe Biden is more on the globalistic side of things, open border, right? Allowing people to come in.
Living in an increasingly globalized world, nations are interconnected, whether we like it or not. I mean, the situation in Ukraine proves that, because whatever is happening in Ukraine is affecting
the whole
African
world.
nations.
Yes.
Exactly, for example. Nationalism is more to yourself. every nation has its borders, self-sufficiency within the nation. That's really nationalism. It's a hard thing because there are two competing ideologies. But we need to understand that we live in a mixture because you have to trade goods between nations, and that's globalism. The EU is globalist because there are no borders.
Economical aspect.
But you also have to maintain certain rigid structures like
your
borders,
own sovereignty,
your own foreign interests or foreign policy regarding other nations. So it's a mixture of competing ideologies, but sometimes complementary ideologies as well.
Yeah, it's like us as individual, bringing that on an individual level where you have to seek your own individualistic interest, right? Whereas looking at the commonwealth or the community collective interest, right? But now it's just how to balance. Education is very important when it comes. I think most people are not educated about the political atmosphere, environment of their country. Be a workshop or a learning platform where voters, I know we usually go on this government website to see information about the election, but we want to see more information about, like I said, the P's that I mentioned, profile, inclusive, elaborative, comprehensive profile of the candidates, their leadership philosophy, their principles, and their social policies, right? We want to see all of these things comprehensively because this will aid our decision making. I can draw more towards this candidate because this candidate shares my common beliefs or my common interests, right? Or I know what I cannot draw towards this candidate because this candidate does not share my important social issues, right? So voters have to be knowledgeable in election because that way they can make effective, wise, calculative decision. But when you don't have knowledge about the candidates, about the political structure of your country, you will just go there and vote unintentionally, and at the end of the day, you have to live with the consequences of your vote, either good or bad. So my people, wherever you are in Africa, election is very serious. It's a decision that you have to make on a national level that will affect everybody that lives in that country. It would affect even your children. So elections have consequences, present and also future. So we advise you to vote wisely, to investigate the candidates. Speak up, raise up your voice. Even if you can meet the candidate and ask them questions, feel free to talk to them one-on-one and pose these questions to the candidate and hold them by their words because politicians, they are liars. We have to hold them by their words. Like you mentioned earlier on, the confidence we don't have anymore because we have been disappointed with all these lies. A politician will tell you that, you know what, when you vote me in, this is what I'm going to accomplish, this is what I'm going to achieve, this is what I'm going to build, and it never happens. People are tired.